And welcome to the special edition of Hannity, Road to the White House. We're only 39 days away from the election, and Donald Trump continues to hammer Hillary Clinton for her very long history of corruption and scandal. Watch this.
The American people have had it with years and decades of Clinton corruption and scandals. Corruption and scandals. And impeachment for lying. Impeachment for lying. Remember that? Impeach. They're tired of the lies. They're tired of the trivial politics. They're tired of being talked down to, looked down upon, and treated like second-class citizens. And they're phenomenal people. You are phenomenal people. The Clintons are the sordid past. We will be the very bright and clean future.
Here now is former Speaker of the House, Fox News contributor Newt Gingrich. All right, 39 days to go. Again, different feels from people, especially as it relates to this Alicia Machado issue. Should Trump go back to the main focus, which is an economy that has disgraceful numbers of foreign policy failures, corruption and scandal like he's just doing there, and stay off of any of these side issues that Hillary's trying to drag him into?
You know, I've been trying to think about his style. And as you know, I'm very fond of him. I've worked very hard, and I really think it's vital for the country that he win and that Hillary Clinton be defeated. And when I've concluded that Steve Lawrence in Golden Rainbow on Broadway back in 1968 sang a key song, I've Gotta Be Me. And I think what Trump's got to understand is he's either got to sing I've Gotta Be Me or he's got to learn a new song, I've Gotta Be President. They're not the same song. He's got to become much more disciplined. For a while there, I thought he had really turned a corner. This last week, I think, has been, frankly, a lost week, a week which has hurt him, which has shaken his own supporters. And you can't tweet at 3 o'clock in the morning, period. There's no excuse ever, not if you're going to be president of the United States. So he's really got to decide, and I think it's very important to understand this. If he's got to be himself, then he may well not win. If he's willing to grow into the role of president, then he may win. In fact, I think he will win. The bigger the issues, the more he talks about raising taxes versus cutting taxes, killing jobs versus creating jobs, defending America versus letting in thousands and thousands of Syrian refugees. I mean, the big issues, he's going to win in a landslide. But if he stays down in the mud, the Clintons are the best mudders I've ever seen, and they'd be perfectly happy to wage the next 39 days in the mud because they know how to survive in mud.
It's interesting to point out, as we've seen, you know, I guess it is frustrating, though, on a lot of levels because the Clintons have, you know, all the bimbo eruptions, all the smearing of women, all the money from Saudi Arabia and countries that mistreat women, kill gays and lesbians, and persecute Christians and Jews. The double standard is frustrating. And watching as an observer, I'm frustrated. But he's the candidate. That's maybe something I would say, or you would say,
right,
as you know, in my case, a talk show host, and you as a former speaker.
Yeah, I mean, he has to present to the country for the next 39 days a methodical, strong, clear vision of of making America great again, to use his own slogan. And he needs to spend a lot more time preparing for this next debate because he only had Lester Holt in this last round. When you get somebody who is as opposed to him as he's going to have when they do that town hall meeting, Anderson Cooper is viscerally, deeply opposed to Donald Trump. I mean, this will be basically at least 3-on-1 with the two moderators plus Hillary. He's got to go into there having done what every professional athlete would do. Look at the game film of the last game. Figure out what you did wrong. Figure out what you've got to improve. And it can't be lackadaisical. He's got to decide that saving America and making America great again is worth his subordinating himself to the difficult process of becoming president of the United States. And that's very different than just being a candidate.
And in many ways, he had done that, especially in the last 6 weeks leading up to this week. You would agree with that?
Yeah, that's what makes...
So it's basically just going back to what he was doing.
I actually thought coming out of the debate he was fine. You know, I was on your show immediately afterwards. I thought strategically he was fine. And then the media, of course, had been set up in a way, and you and I didn't appreciate. This whole thing was an ambush. But the correct step there is to sidestep the ambush. Don't get sucked into it. all he had to say was, look, they want to make something out of a 20-year-old business decision. I want to create jobs. They want to talk about 20 years ago. I want to tell you how we're going to fix the economy. You just build a litany. You learn. You trained. You know, I didn't get to be a good debater by randomly doing it. It takes training. It takes thinking. It takes learning your own mistakes. Going, wow, I didn't know I did that. And so I really hope that this is a wake-up call for him. Quit tweeting without somebody looking over your shoulder. Don't ever tweet late at night. And prepare to really study and get ready for a serious debate, because this next debate's going to be very important for how people judge him and whether or not they think he's capable of being president.
In other words, will he make the adjustments? Look, I think, as far as I'm concerned, Hillary, she shot every bullet in her attack gun against Donald Trump. And he left a lot on the table, especially about emails and servers and lying and dishonesty and Benghazi and Obamacare and Iraq and Syria and ISIS and vetting refugees and immigration and a wall. There's a lot left here for him to bring up.
If you're
making that list, I think, would be important. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're doing great. Look, it's your show. But I'm excited to say this. Look, when you look at, get the transcript of the last minute and a half of the debate, where she goes on this huge detour to get this attack on Trump. She's being a professional debater. She knows what her message is. She's going to get it across no matter what. The key to these things is, if Anderson Cooper asks you something stupid, you say, gosh, that's a really interesting topic, and it reminds me that I wanted to talk about how we're going to create jobs, Anderson. I'm so glad you brought that up, because, you know, creating jobs is really important. But you don't let him define what the debate is. And you go back and look at my best debates in 2011 and 12, I consistently reframed the media and got to the topic I wanted to talk about, not the topic they wanted to talk about.
I will say this, you are one of the better debaters out there by far, and it led to a lot of success, and you did win an important primary in South Carolina as a result of some of those debates. You know, it is important. You know, for me, this is so substantive, and the differences are so profound. It is kind of sad on one level that if Hillary can robotically memorize lines written by others and deliver them because she's been in politics, as you pointed out the other night, 46 years, not 30 years, that somehow that's viewed as presidential. And if somebody looks at that as superfluous and nonsensical in a way, in other words, we'll ignore the vetting of refugees issues, which their differences are deep and profound. Hillary's willing to gamble with people's lives. Trump is not. Trump is listening to our top intelligence officials. She is not. But people would more be interested in the style than the real substance. That's a little troubling to me, anyway.
But remember, because you're a conservative and you've been through this, I go all the way back to Reagan and the early days of the Reagan campaign for president. If she didn't have the elite media in the tank for her, she'd be down at 30%. I mean, the only reason she's, but that's a fact. It's not a problem. What you do about it's a problem. Every conservative has to start out in the morning and say, I realize all the New York Times will oppose me, the Washington Post will oppose me, NBC, CBS, ABC, you go down the list. They're all going to be against me. Now, how do I design a campaign and how do I go into a debate knowing that that's the bias? And it's like sailing and understanding you got to learn to tack. You never go straight into the wind because you can't. So you got to figure out, how am I going to maneuver around these biases and turn it back on her? If she didn't have the elite media, given exactly what you just said, she would be losing by an enormous margin right now.
Really, really good advice. I hope people are listening. Thanks, Mr. Speaker. Appreciate it.
Right.
And coming up next on the special edition of Hannity.
Vote for Mr. Trump. Give yourselves that sense of peace. That's your children. This is the greatest man I have ever met.
Clinton campaign's trying to paint Trump as sexist, but our next guest, who knows him very well, says that's 100% not true. Wait till you hear this incredible story. Plus, Donald Trump continues to pound the campaign trail. Today, he was in the great state of Michigan. We're going to play highlights, and we'll speak with Trump campaign manager Kellyanne Conway. That and more straight ahead.
This is the greatest man I have ever met. His heart is made of pure gold. He saved me in so many ways and changed my world. Yes, he gave me a lot of gifts in my life. A gift of of compassion and showing my son how to pay it forward. But above that, if this man becomes president of the United States of America, he is going to give me the best gift ever, and that is, I'll know that when I leave this world, I won't be here to watch my son grow. But I'll know that he is going to grow up in a country that is safe.
Welcome back to the special edition of Hannity. That was former Miss Wisconsin, Melissa Young. That was back in April, giving a very heartfelt endorsement to Donald Trump as she fights for her life. And while Hillary Clinton and her liberal cohorts are trying to paint Donald Trump as sexist, my next guests say that couldn't be further from the truth. Joining us now to explain, former Trump International Vice President Sanada Adzem is with us, former Miss California USA, Carrie Prejean-Bowler, and the woman you just heard from, former Miss Wisconsin, Melissa Young. Melissa, you're really fighting for your life even still. I had the honor of meeting you myself.
Yes, sir.
Tell us the story about you and Donald Trump and your health.
Yes, sir. You're correct. I am fighting for each and every day. And what happened was I stood on his stage when he owned the Miss Universe organization. I competed in the Miss USA pageant in 2005. Many years later, I became ill, and really in those darkest days of being sick in the hospital, and I have never told him this personally, but that morning the priest had come and read me my last rites, and that day an envelope was delivered to my room that said, "Must be delivered by 8 a.m. It was handwritten by Mr. Trump, and when it was opened, it was a letter saying, "To the bravest woman I know," and he wanted me to keep fighting. And in that moment, it sparked something in me that I realized, like, my purpose is to fight, and I need to get up and fight. And he really sparked such a wonderful.
Yeah, you have an 8-year-old
Yes,
little boy,
sir.
and your illness, your doctor says
I do.
You're fighting literally every day for your life. You don't know, well, what is the prognosis that they're telling you?
Right. Correct. There is no cure for me. My heart is now in the condition of a 90-year-old woman. And since the message is coming from my brain, the part of my brain that controls my autonomic nervous system, which is all of our automatic functions that we don't think about, like heart rate, blood pressure, all of those things, digestion, which explains the tube I have here, that part of my brain shut off like a light switch, and there is no way to manipulate the brain to tell it to turn back on. So I cannot get a new heart because it will send the same message to a new heart. So I have a heart in the condition of a 90-year-old woman, and I'm fighting each day. And I just had a blood clot removed less than 48 hours ago from my chest. And I'm here today because until my last breath, I will use this voice to speak up, to talk about who Mr. Trump really is. It is so important that this side of the story is told. He is the most wonderful man I have ever met.
Well, it's a pretty deep story, and you're in our thoughts and prayers, by the way, Melissa. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much, Sean.
Carrie,
thank you for having me.
When you were under fire, and you were under heavy fire, I remember you at one point told me there was only 2 people in your universe that stood up for you as the world turned against you, and one of them was Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's good to be with you, Sean. Thank you so much for having me on. And I just think Melissa's story, I mean, she's just such a woman of courage. She truly is amazing, and her bravery is so inspiring. So thank you, Melissa.
Wow.
Yeah, to answer your question, Sean, yes, Donald Trump was one of the only people that stood up for me and defended me. And I am so tired of the nonsense and the attacks against him. I mean, they are so desperate, Sean, that they are going to go at all lengths to try to destroy this man. This is a smear campaign to try and distract people from the real issues. And Donald Trump, this is the type of man that he is. Listen to Melissa, listen to her story, and listen to my story. He defended me. He stood up for me. He took every single one of my phone calls. He did not have to do that. This is a businessman who's running multiple businesses. He took every single one of my
personal... And he actually defended Alicia Machado, by the way. And you know,
right,
beyond
exactly.
the quote, he actually said it's a very tough position. And we were talking about beauty contests here, too. This is not...
Right.
Yeah.
Let's put it into context here, Sean.
Exactly.
I mean, let's not forget, this is a beauty contest. This is a contest that
Amen.
That hypes up, you know, how women look, and you know, part of it is walking on stage in a bikini, and God forbid, you know, some women might need to shed a few pounds, and some women might need to gain a few pounds.
My doctor called me fat a couple of years ago, so I started working out, and I lost some weight.
I mean, it's just sad that we're talking about this.
And Sean,
it's just
in 20 years, Sean, you should come forward and say something about that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I should.
In about
I'm going to
20
yell
years.
at my doctor. I'm going
Right.
to call him out on national TV. Sonata, you're
There
in a
you
different
go.
position because you work for Donald Trump, and you worked on his biggest projects. You were vice president, and you hear these attacks. What do you say to people because you know him?
Well, first and foremost, I want to say to people to listen to amazing, inspiring women like Melissa. And I can relate. I faced that many times. And she's truly not just a beautiful woman inside and out, but she is such an impactful, inspiring woman. Based on my experience, I worked at Trump International from 2003 until 2007. I can tell you that he's a very tough businessman, but he's very fair. He gave women the same opportunities that he gave to men, and you had to prove yourself. You had to work really, really hard.
And Carrie, when you compare how Hillary and her husband treat women, and the media doesn't cover it, and you know, I'm going to crucify Jennifer Flowers and about Monica Lewinsky, a narcissistic Looney Tune. That never gets covered by the media, does it? And not only that, the allegations of Kathleen Willey and Juanita and Paula Jones, etc.
Right. Right, and let's not forget, she spent over $100,000 bullying these women who didn't deserve it. So if she's such a, you know, advocate of women and their rights and supporting women, why was she tearing these women down? She should have been building them up and believing their story, like she says we all should.
Yeah. All right, guys, I want to thank you all for sharing your stories. It gives something the media won't do. And let's give another side of the story. And Melissa, you especially, and all of you, you're in our thoughts and prayers.
Thank you.
And we wish you the very best every day, and the best to your son also. Thank you. And coming up, we have highlights from Donald Trump's rally earlier tonight in Michigan. His campaign manager, Kellyanne Conway, will join us next. Plus, First Lady Michelle Obama has been trying to rally Hillary Clinton supporters, but does she really, what does she really think about her? We'll show you some tape. Kimberly Guilfoyle, Doug Schoen, they weigh in on that and more on the special edition of Hannity. Welcome back to the special edition of Hannity. Road to the White House. Donald Trump has been hitting the campaign trail hard all week. Earlier today, the GOP hopeful was in Michigan and held a rally. Here are some of those highlights.
We're going to win the state of Michigan. We're going to win the White House, and it's going to be an awfully good November 8th. That evening is going to be a celebration. It's time, by the way, to rebuild Detroit. We're going to rebuild Detroit. It's time to rebuild Michigan, and we're not letting them take your jobs out of Michigan any longer. And it's time to rebuild the United States of America. We're going to do it. Our country is going to be greater than ever before. We're going to be the smart country again. The people of this country are tired of the lies. They're tired of trivial politics. They're tired of being talked down to, looked down upon, and treated like second-class citizens. This will finally be the year that the American people say, enough is enough.
And a brand new national Fox News poll just released today shows in a four-way matchup, Clinton and Trump are now neck and neck. There is a 3-point difference within the margin of error. Joining us now with the reaction is the Trump campaign manager, Kellyanne Conway. Kellyanne, good to see you.
Hi, Sean.
You know, one of the things Newt said that I thought was pretty smart, enlightening, bright guy, is I understand Mr. Trump's frustration with an abusively biased media. They're never going to tell the story of the smearing, the slandering, the besmirching, the bimbo eruptions, and all of these issues. There'll always be a double standard. And what he was suggesting is that Mr. Trump subordinate his personal feelings to the larger message, which is here are our differences on Supreme Court justices, on vetting refugees, on saying radical Islam, on building a wall, on education back to the states, on energy independence, on repealing Obamacare. What do you think?
I agree completely in that, look, Hillary Clinton cannot run on her record. Okay, she's got this bad conundrum where she could be held accountable for what's a really unremarkable record in the United States Senate. I think there are 3 bills passed with her name on it. I know she sponsored other ones, but go and look at the information. She has a very checkered record as Secretary of State, and yet she doesn't have the benefit of incumbency. So if you actually make a contrast between her views and yours, her vision and yours, and you hold her to account on women, Sean, how many thousands of women has Donald Trump employed over his career? They've been compensated, they've been respected, they've elevated throughout the ranks of the Trump Corporation, many of them. They occupy some of the highest levels.
Well, we just had some of the women on that have either worked for him or that he has treated so nicely, and it's a very different story of what the Clintons will spin or the media will spin.
That's right. And Sean, as everyone knows, watch what I do, not what I say, when it comes to how you treat people. And the point is that he has been very good to women throughout his life as a non-politician. Secondly, the Clinton Foundation takes money from all of these countries where women and girls are not treated with respect. They don't have basic rights. Millions of dollars have gone into the Clinton Foundation. And I think the frustration is all the incomplete coverage. We don't hear anything about the 5 people who have taken immunity as connected to the FBI investigation, the email scandal. Cheryl Mills took immunity and then acted as her attorney in the same investigation. So there's a great deal of frustration about what's covered, but I agree. You take the case, you take the issue set to Hillary Clinton, and you win. And that's also why she didn't really talk about issues the other night when she got the microphone. She got through that 5 or 6 point checklist of things she wanted to make sure that she was going to say. They're there to talk about issues, and she's yelling, "Squirrel!" And then, of course, making a big deal of it afterward.
Yeah, because I do think this is what the election, at the end of the day, I think people are going to look at, okay, the economy is not good. We have 12 million more Americans on food stamps, 8 million more in poverty, the worst recovery since the 40s, lowest home ownership rate in 51 years, lowest labor participation rate in the 70s. That is huge. And then if you look at a record in Benghazi, Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, the Russian reset, supporting the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt, China's territorial ambitions, the North Korea's nuclear ambitions, nothing has really gotten better, nothing has been solved. And I think that was a good point that Donald Trump made at the debate the other night. 30 years, all talk, no action. Right. What have you done? But that's not what she wants to talk about. And it seems the media wants to stay focused on this former Miss whatever that was, threatened to kill the judge, that lady.
And Sean, look, when Donald Trump did say at the debate, a very strong moment for him, and something that won't change between now and November 8th, who represents the past, who represents the future, who represents change in Washington in a very disruptive outsider way with business experience, and who represents more of the same. So if you are one of the 70% of Americans who tells pollsters you want to take this country in a new and different direction, your choice is clear. And I'm really struck by your new Fox News poll, Sean, that the ballot is still tight. People, if you listen to the pundits about Monday night, Hillary Clinton should be at 82% by now, and 110% among women, and she's not. She's still well below 50 in your Fox News poll. Why? Because people already know her. Their minds about her representing the status quo and having this very checkered and underwhelming record, that they know that doesn't change over the course of a 90-minute debate. The other thing that struck me in the Fox News poll are the attributes and the positions on who can handle these issues better. These two voters are really tied, whereas in past presidential contests, there was more of a gulf between the Democratic and Republican candidate in terms of who do you trust more on this issue. And most of those in your poll, they're within the margin of error or really close to it. So this is a real contest. We have a lot of days to go. She practices for moments. Donald Trump's out there in the stump every day. Today in Michigan, people standing in the pouring rain for hours to get into his rally, and then he talked about her globalist policies and the fact that he's got a very patriotic message to, quote, make America safe and prosperous and great again. It will come down to that in the end. All right, I agree with that wholeheartedly. Kellyanne, I know you're working hard. As always, thanks for taking time to be with us. We appreciate it. Thank you, Sean. Now, has Michelle Obama always thought this highly of Hillary Clinton? Remember when the now First Lady said this back in 2007.
One of the important aspects of this race is role modeling what good families should look like. And my view is that if you can't run your own house, you certainly can't run the White House. Can't do it.
All right, joining us now with reaction, former Clinton pollster, Fox News contributor, and author of Putin's Master Plan, Doug Schoen, and the co-host, of course, of the hit show The Five, Kimberly Guilfoyle. Well, I think it's pretty clear when you say, well, you can't be in the White House if you can't keep your own house. Pretty harsh treatment. Which Michelle should we believe, though? The one then or the one now?
I mean, the irony, right? The irony. Hillary Clinton, who conducted her own war on women with her scandal-plagued
bimbo
husband.
Eruptions.
Unbelievable, treating women abusively in that way. And then also, you see, this is somebody that people are supposed to look up to and admire. This is somebody who would put the White House, the Oval, for sale, like they did the Clinton Foundation with influence peddling and getting involved in businesses that are state sponsors of Sharia and terrorism, the countries that commit acts of violence against gays, against women, against minorities. So why is this somebody to be admired, to be revered, that should be in the White House? Michelle Obama didn't think so before.
Yeah. You know, Doug, on first glance, I know as a political strategist, you would probably say, stay focused on the issues.
Absolutely.
First thing. But here's a problem for the Clintons. Every time they think they're scoring on the issue like of women, it boomerangs back. Because now Juanita Broderick is talking. Now Paula Jones is talking. Now Kathleen Willey is talking.
Sure.
Now we bring up Saudi Arabia and the mistreatment of women and the money that they gave the Clintons.
Sean, I was one of Bill Clinton's closest advisors in the White House in 1998 during the Lewinsky scandal. And all that happened to his approval ratings is they went steadily up because people focused on his leadership in the economy, not.
Did that surprise you at the time?
It didn't surprise me because people care about their lives. You and I have talked about this. If Donald Trump wants to run against Alicia Machado and not Hillary Clinton, I can tell you, whatever your feelings about the Secretary of State, she will be our next president. And I can say, for those who want Donald Trump to be president, talk about the economy, talk about corruption, and change most of all, and get off this stuff because it doesn't help Donald Trump.
Isn't it the type of thing that people like I would bring up as a talk show host, or Kimberly, who gives her opinions every day?
Sure.
Isn't it more what we would do to bring context to people rather than a candidate?
Absolutely. What you and Kimberly talk about.
And what do you talk about in fairness?
And I'm happy to talk about if in fact,
shows.
But let me be very clear.
On an opinion show?
As coaches.
Wait a minute, I'm not a journalist. They keep writing that I'm a journalist. I keep telling them I am a talk host.
But you're also a strategist who understands no matter what her vulnerabilities may be, if there's an election to be won, you win it by talking about the issues people care about.
Okay, so he pivots back. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that he's so strong on the economy, on jobs, on creating infrastructure, restoring safety in communities, on national security. There's so many things that you can hit Hillary on, and the polling shows that she is very weak-kneed when it comes to the email scandal. That is something that he can definitely hit her on. I wouldn't get distracted by some of these other issues. I get it. He doesn't let anybody land a punch. He's always wanting to counterpunch. But now, just be surgical, be strategic. You know, you've got what you want in your sights.
And let his team surrogates or
like
talk show hosts that have strong opinions like us and Doug, you know, we can give opinions on this, and at least that would inform. I do believe there's an entire generation that don't know Juanita Broderick's story, Kathleen Willey's story, Paula Jones' story. I mean, exposing himself, groping, fondling, grabbing, kissing against her will, and an allegation of rape, and more importantly, the smearing that took place afterwards. That's a big story.
My best advice
is him stay away from it.
Is that the Trump campaign should talk to millennials about the economy, the weak economy of Barack Obama, and not get into these extraneous issues which really don't concern how people are going to vote.
All right.
Excellent advice. She doesn't have a strong economy to fall back on.
She doesn't. She doesn't.
Guys, good to see you both, and appreciate you being here. And coming up next on this special edition of Hannity.
Oh, is the media dishonest? How dishonest are these people? Just think, how dishonest. Unbelievable.
Donald Trump calling out the mainstream media for their abusively biased coverage. We'll check in with Sheriff David Clark and former Governor Mike Huckabee. They are here next on this busy news night. Straight ahead. And welcome back to the special edition of Hannity, Road to the White House. Now, this week, many liberals in the mainstream media have been trashing Donald Trump, and in return, Trump fires back. Take a look.
Oh, is the media dishonest? How dishonest are these people? Just think, how dishonest. Unbelievable. Not all, but a big, big fat percentage. Our campaign is taking on big business and big media and big donors. We're taking them on for you. The failed politicians and the arrogant media don't want me to talk about the crime and the violence that's happening in this country. We're trying to disrupt the collusion between the wealthy donors, large corporations, and the media executives, who are among the most honest people anywhere that I have met.
Joining us now with reaction, former 2016 Republican presidential candidate, former governor of Arkansas, Mike Huckabee, as well as Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clark. You know, I look at, Governor, you've dealt with a corrupt media. Sheriff, you've dealt with a corrupt media. I've dealt with it my whole life also. It's all true. But as Newt said earlier in the program, you've got to factor that in. It's just a reality that is never going to change. Right, Governor?
Well, that's exactly right, Sean. I mean, you wake up every day, and the first thing you got to do when you look in the mirror is to say, the media will never be my friend. And Donald Trump has to understand they're never going to be for him. They're always going to be against him. But it doesn't hurt him with the people, because most people don't have any faith in the media. They have the lowest approval rating that they've ever had in history, and people don't trust the media any more than they trust Hillary. Let Trump focus on those two facts. What he said in that little clip you played, that was exactly how to handle it. Tie the media to the same frustrations that people have about the way this system is rigged, and that's how he overcomes it. But don't dignify them. Don't give them place by giving too much attention to them, because they don't deserve that kind of attention from him.
You know, and Sheriff, look at the death and destruction in Obama's home city of Chicago. You know, there is something really radically wrong that a president will talk about Cambridge, Trayvon, Ferguson, and Baltimore, but ignore 3,000 shot this year, nearly 4,000 killed since he's been president in his own hometown, and nobody in America knows their names. Isn't that a media that only goes with a president's narrative, ignoring real death and destruction, not telling the true story?
Sure, they're covering for him. You know, pay no attention to that man behind the curtain. Look, the liberal mainstream media is dwindling into irrelevancy, Sean, and you know that. Donald Trump understands that this is a dragon that has to be slayed. The liberal mainstream media, these rags, realize that this is their last stand to have any influence over the American public as it relates to presidential politics. And Donald Trump, it's a thing of beauty, continues to play the or employ a strategy of Muhammad Ali rope-a-dope. The media is pounding away, throwing everything they got like George Foreman was, and every once in a while Donald Trump looks up, he smiles, and he says, is that all you got? And at some point, it's going to be November 8th. The American public is going to fire back and finish them off. Donald Trump is going to win this election, and the liberal mainstream media, I want to make that clear, they know that, and I'm telling you right now, they are scared as hell.
Governor, and that then comes to strategy for Donald Trump. There are deep, profound differences that will have a dramatic impact on this country based on who gets elected. Everything from the Supreme Court to vetting refugees, to protecting our borders, to eliminating Obamacare, to balancing a budget, to lowering taxes, you know, to energy independence, to education. These are profound, deep differences. To what extent does Donald Trump have to balance that agenda and point out the distinct change he's offering versus dealing with falsehoods and attacks?
Well, I think he's got to focus on the differences that he and Hillary Clinton bring. Look, one of the things a president does that's most powerful is employ people and appoint people. Who will Hillary appoint to the EPA? What will they do to the fossil fuel industry? What will they do to the cost of a tank of gasoline, or the cost of heating oil, or the cost of natural gas? That's going to be a huge difference. Who's going to be a champion for people getting manufacturing jobs back that pay decent wages? Who's going to protect the home of our country against people coming in who are not vetted? Who's really going to enforce our immigration laws? Those are the things that Donald Trump is
so as long as he's getting that message out
with Hillary on.
And the comparing and contrasting of what the future will look like under her and under him, that's key?
I think it's absolutely the key. And if he just continues to pound away at that, look, it's very obvious that there's a difference between Hillary Clinton having used government as her own ATM to take cash out, doing favors for foreign governments, who in turn then gave money to the Clinton Foundation. Corruption is rampant. But in addition to the dishonesty that she brings to this, it's the philosophical vent that she comes with that would be devastating to this country and to the deplorable and irredeemable people that she has no respect for.
You're deplorable. We're all in the basket of deplorables. Sheriff, you're in the basket with us.
Yeah, I'm right there. Look, Donald Trump has created a great vision for America. You know, make America great again. Every American can see that. They can envision that. He's talking about defeating radical Islamic terror. He's talking about reducing crime and violence in all American cities for all American, but particularly in the American ghetto. And he's talking about kickstarting this economy to put people back to work again. Those are things that affect us here at ground level. I know the Beltway, the bubble in the Beltway, those people are disconnected. The Congress, the Washington politicians, the media elite, they're all disconnected. But we down here at ground level, we know what we want, and it's Donald Trump's vision for America.
All right, thank you both for being with us. When we come back, we have a very important question of the day as this special edition of Hannity continues straight ahead. All right, time for our question of the day as we continue on the special edition of Hannity. Should Hillary Clinton apologize to her husband's accusers? Why? For the way she treated them and her surrogates treated them. And, oh, I'll crucify Jennifer Flowers and James Carville, drag $1 through a trailer park, and, of course, all the other things that were said about all the other women. Let's go to Facebook.com/Sean Hannity, @Sean Hannity on Twitter. Let us know what you think. That's all the time we have left this evening. As always, thank you for being with us. We'll be back Monday, 36 days to go until Election Day. It's getting interesting. Have a great weekend.